Hello everyone, hope you're all well, and thanks very much for all the support with my videos, the likes, shares and comments. Very grateful for everybody who supports my work, and thanks to everybody who subscribes to my YouTube channel as well. I'm in Rathmines today and I want to speak about the Housing Commission report that was leaked yesterday but released officially today. And the chair was John O'Connor, who was former head of the Housing Agency. And a few interesting facets I want to speak about. We know our housing disaster has been going on for many years, emanates really has been fast-tracked since the financial crash in Ireland, which opened the door to the vulture funds. And the Kenny famously said Ireland was the best small country to do business in, and that was code for devastating austerity by the European Union through the bank bailout. 43% of the total European banking debt was foisted on the people of Ireland. The bankers were bailed out and the people were sold out. We've seen that through the huge implementation of austerity policies based through the Troika, the European Central Bank, the IMF and the European Union, and which opened the door to the vulture funds to come into Ireland, real estate investment trusts, and made it the Wild West of Ireland now, where we see extortionate rents being charged to people, out of controlled house prices, record amount of evictions, record homelessness, and on top of that we've had the added exponential pressure of the immigration crisis, which is having an effect on keeping accommodation costs high as well, and putting pressure on overstretched public services and resources. It's also interesting here in RT Road. I want to show you a couple of things where I am tonight as well as we follow on with the video. But the Housing Commission reported to say that it was an ineffective and reactive response by successive governments on housing. They also said the rent pressure zones should be replaced with different means, such as the size of apartments, to look at possible and similar apartments in locations to have similar costs on those apartments as well. We know extortionate rents in Ireland, in Dublin in particular, all around Ireland as well, which some counties aren't limited by the rent pressure zone. But this is completely a fallacy, because what happens is a lot of new builds aren't subject to the rent pressure zones. A lot of people can leave their homes empty for a couple of years and then come in at higher rents as well, which pushes up the rents again. But again, a lot of these are international real estate investment trusts and vulture funds making huge profits, going back to the famous bank bailout through the neoliberal policies and the austerity of the European Union that the Irish political leaders are so wedded to, rather than standing up for the interests of people. They estimate that the deficit of housing is up to 256,000 homes in Ireland currently. And this is going to be, as I said, exacerbated by the immigration disaster as well, where we have record, as I said, amount of people in homelessness, up to 14,000 people in emergency accommodation. Over 4,000 of those are children. There's been 300,000 people at least who are so-called couch surfing or sleeping in friends and families' homes. And I highlighted a number of days ago a video about the disgraceful conditions of the council tenants, conditions and flat complexes all around this constituency and all around Dublin as well. A lot are in devastating and horrific circumstances and uninhabitable living conditions, and serious overcrowding as well. And it's always been in conflict for the working classes' housing as well. But a couple of things just to talk about this report. They spoke about the state investing in capital expenditure rather than current expenditure. So in layman's term, that means it's based on long-term projects rather than the short-term quick fix projects, which have become a long-term wedded private market, such as a housing assistance payment for up to €1 billion this year has been transferred from public hands into private hands, going to enrich the landlords out of our public wealth rather than building sustainable public homes for people who are in desperate need of accommodation, where you could rely on the rent roll as well to maintain those homes as well, which is something, of course, they're so wedded to the market and the financialisation of housing. This is quite difficult for them, the political establishment in Ireland, to grasp. And they also spoke about the infrastructure, working up with joined up planning in terms of water services and so forth as well. When they're looking at these developments happens in Ireland, there's no joined up thinking on anything. As I said, they spoke about the policy with the HAP, the RAS schemes, rent supplement as well. There's not been long-term solutions. And they said that about public housing, stroke social housing, they said the sector is protected and not privatised. And they estimated up to 20% of the housing should be deemed as being public housing stroke cost rental. Now the cost rental model is interesting because it's absolutely not affordable at all for a lot of people, and it's limited as well, because if you're on the social housing list in Ireland or public housing lists, you can only earn up to less than €40,000 per year, and even with a couple it's just slightly in excess of that, which isn't pretty prohibitive, to put it mildly, and exclusionary as well. And the idea of universality goes against the European Union, and the whole idea of universal public housing is a good idea where people can live side by side. You have mixed income groups that can pay rent according to their income and have proper integrated communities. But as I said, the idea would be to have up to 20% of this housing deemed as social stroke public housing. And currently in Ireland we have one of the lowest rates of social housing. It's about 7% of our total housing, which is absolutely catastrophic. And as I said, part of the bank bailout was to stop building public housing. So go figure, who do we blame? Look at the European Union and look at the politicians in Ireland who bow down to them rather than serving the interests of the people here in Ireland. There's also discussion around vacancy, about retrofitting and those issues as well. There's not even a punitive vacant home tax in Ireland. It's a rap on the knuckles, if even that, a rap on the knuckle for keeping a home empty. Again, which is just unbelievable. We see a huge amount of vacancy, dereliction up and down the country. And now they've provided derelict site grants, for instance, for people to get homes back into use. Again, which is going to enrich the property owners rather than tackle these vacant homes. In this constituency, in the Kimmage-Rathmines local election area, there's only 6 homes on the vacant house register. It's just shameful. I could walk down the street and point you out to 6 or 7 vacant homes in this small stretch of a road. So it shows you there's absolutely no enforcement of these policies as well, which again is more window dressing. They spoke about they couldn't agree on wording towards a referendum on housing, unsurprisingly. And let's see, they're talking also about the rental market, that regulated agencies should be amalgamated into a single entity. Now, I've been calling for this for a long period of time around having an independent rental board for homes. It's vitally important that people, council and private rental tenants go to an independent rental board where people and tenants are on those boards rather than landlords, developers, estate agents and so forth as well. And they also spoke about land prices. But again, there was a Kenny report in Ireland which capped the value of land. That had a depreciation effect on housing, and that's been sitting on a shelf in Ireland for over 50 years. So let's see, crazy stuff in Ireland. But again, more lip service, more absolute crazy response coming from the political establishment, but again, they serve the developers, the speculators, the big landlords, and the people who are profiting from our housing misery. And I'll give you one example of the profiting from our housing misery. Is that big building there behind me is a building that's owned by Richard Barrett of Bartra Capital, famously part of Treasury Holdings, and it was sued by NAMA, but bailed out by all of us, friends with Johnny Ronan, 7-storey building, you can see it there. And that's called Niche Living, and it's due to be open in the next number of weeks. It's currently advertising rooms at €1,895 per month. Astronomical. And it's this co-living, crazy stuff they tried to bring in a few years ago. Owen Murphy, a previous housing minister, said this was like boutique hotel and boutique accommodation, where you would cram 11 to 17 in each floor, and it's said it's a 7-storey building. There's 98 units here as well. And Bartra Capital, who we all bailed out through NAMA, friends of Johnny Ronan and Richard Barrett here, with his Treasury Holdings, is going to make huge profits from this for all his international funds, who are going to profit massively from our crisis. So this is part of the disaster Irish housing policies, and who benefits? The benefactors are the bankers, the developers, the big landlords, and the international finance vehicles who make huge profits off our expense. And many people nationally here too, obviously, with the housing disaster, with so many evictions in this area as well. So that's the absolute spin that's coming out through the housing commission documents, and what will be implemented off it, next to nothing. It'll be talking about more supply, more supply, more supply, and they'll be pushing this kind of supply rather than family homes, rather than long-term accommodation for people. They have these short-term co-living worker cells developments here in Rathmines, which are more interested in a turn the quick book, forcing people into, as I said, worker cells, rather than providing family, long-term, secure, sustainable homes in our community. So thanks for joining me today, and please support my videos, and please support my campaign in Kimmage Rathmines as well. I'll be standing up for ordinary people, for renters' rights, for people that have a right to have a home in our community as well. So thanks for joining me in the video today, and take care. All the best. Bye bye.